if you notice that there's a pattern that keeps looping, we even say that it keeps looping, because it literally is looping. It's because we've not really gone underneath it. We've gone along the timeline of it. We've not dropped down underneath it to heal it at its actual source. And we can only appreciate what that is, I think, from a non-dual perspective, with this kind of understanding of what the ego is and, how it operates. The intention with the Liberty Code is to simplify it, to simplify exactly what it is that we need to look at and be exposing and collapsing. That's
And in this case, it's the hidden desires.
And that when we start to view our patterns and our circumstances through the lenses of these desires, it really helps us to expose what's really going on in a very illuminating way.
Hello, Charmain Berry. Hello. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
And today I'm speaking to a wonderful woman. She's been working with people for many, many years, with trauma therapy, cognitive therapy, and all kinds of different approaches. And today we're meeting because she has found something very interesting, very different. And we are going to dive into that. It's all about exploring mind in a different way beyond the trauma approach. So stay tuned, and we are going to explore some prediction loops, and something that not many people are talking about, just to help to understand what is going on in the mind. Right, so this show is called Awakening Now. So let's start from the very first question that I ask everyone, and it's, what is your definition of awakening?
I think my definition would be something like the seeing through of what we're not, and that is an enlightening process that kind of unfolds and never ends. I think we get here, wherever here is, with an idea of who we think we are, and perhaps we might say that the whole point of that is to realize that the truth of that, who we truly are. And I think that unfolds for people in so many different ways. And I think with that realization, there's peace and relief and more lightness, and not that life changes drastically, but it's seen very differently and experienced differently.
I so agree with that. Could you share a little bit about your awakening, the story of how this view shifted for you? What happened? How did you come to realize what you truly are?
I think I'm like no different to anyone else, like just what I described there, being here and without realizing what it is, just being in suffering, just being in this separate identity with all the striving and ambition and trying and depression and anxiety and confusion, and and that sort of for many years being related to a me, like this is me and I've got to do something about this. And I think that led me into psychology. That is what led me into psychology. It was that inquiry, what's making me suffer. And I just pursued that. It was a scientific kind of approach, really, to understanding suffering. And that led me into training in lots of different things. And then when I found the trauma theory, that the reason why we suffer is because of things that happened to us in the past, I ran with that. I was like, okay, here it is. Here's the Holy Grail. I've figured it out. I just need to go and heal the past and find the trauma and find the touchstone and undo that, and then I'll be free. So I ran with that for a long time and trained in everything, and then realized that didn't really change anything. I mean, there was relief, and certain behaviors might have changed and attitude might have changed, but I didn't really know what the goal. I didn't know there was another goal then. And it wasn't until I stumbled across A Course in Miracles, that was my intro to non-dual, if you like, because somebody told me the ego scripts are in there, so I read it. That was very illuminating, and then that led me into um, understanding more about non-dual, which is where I found Liberation Unleashed, and had a guide there, and just went on this really deep, beautiful exploration, and then just to seeing that, wow, it's the identification with what I'm not as a whole. That is the suffering. Being separate is suffering, and seeing that. So, and then I've just, extended through that, and sort of circled back into the science, if you like, and
Mhm.
um, and what's arrived now is this, the Liberty Code, as it's called, and this way of looking at things, and yeah, it's very beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. And recently I was just scrolling Facebook in the moment, and I saw your invitation to a Zoom meeting where you were presenting these liberty codes, and I got really curious. So
Mm, mm,
I watched it,
mm,
and yeah, there were so many answers, and there were so many questions as well, how that works, because it's not exactly what everyone is talking about. I mean,
mm,
yes, there
mm.
is a different language about the same thing, and maybe we are talking about the same thing, but when
Yeah.
it's put in a different way, some people resonate with that way, and maybe that can open a new perspective. So could
Mm,
you please tell us a little bit about the Liberty Codes?
mm.
What's the
Yeah.
core message of that and how it works? Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. I'll try and funnel it down because it's quite expansive, really. There's a lot of different components to it, but to put it really simply, I guess the Liberty Code is a way of helping us see that we're not our thoughts, for example,
Mhm.
and therefore if we're not our thoughts, then we don't have the problems that we think we have on a sort of a personal level in the way that we think that we do. So that's kind of it's kind of a way of helping people to recognize that. So I'm sort of evolving it for people that might be very, very new into this arena of sort of self-inquiry and
Mhm.
self-realization. Um, but it's really born from a fusion between neuroscience, latest. So it's not even that latest. It's still sort of 10 years old, but the evidence base in the neuroscience, um, which states that we do not have memory. The body does not keep the score. We don't have filing cabinets where things from the past are being stored and we're retrieving them again in the present time. What the mind is doing is making predictions all of the time based on identity roles. So I found that really fascinating. I only discovered that this year. And then I could straight away see the resonance between that and what the Course in Miracles teaches from
Mhm.
a metaphysical perspective as well as non-dualism. And it's kind of like a marriage between those two similar but different sort of orientations. And with that as well was within the Course in Miracles and the work of a woman called Kay Villars, there's a recognition that the reason why we are engaging in these identity roles is because on a very deep level, we desired it. We actually wanted to be separate. We wanted to know what it was like. We had that original idea as one, in one. What would it be like to be two? And in that moment, we created this seemingly very complex belief system, separate identity, and a world to play that out in, which is in resonance with the teachings of A Course in Miracles. So when all that's been distilled, and I've been working with ChatGPT with this, which has done all the heavy lifting and can synthesize
Mhm.
things and create new things out of these fusions, which has been a fascinating process. The Liberty Code is essentially a very sort of it's an easier way for people to identify um, who they think they are, why they think they're doing that, and what the patterns are, and ultimately what the hidden desires are within that. So I'm just, yeah, it sounds quite complicated when I'm saying it like this, but It's actually, as it gets more and more refined, it's a very, very simple sort of process, helping us get to underneath what's really happening in the ego mind.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the hidden desires because, if it's a hidden thing, we don't know. It's kind of
Yeah, yeah,
the behaviors, the patterns, the situations keep coming up, and conscious mind's like, what's wrong with this? Why is this going on? But
yeah,
somewhere deep, there's a hidden desire. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
yeah,
What kind of
absolutely.
desires, so people can have
Mhm.
a clue what's going on and then start
Yeah,
digging.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess like um in a traditional sense, so I'm just trying to get an example in my mind, but in a traditional sense, we might get a trigger
Mhm,
and we might have a familiar pattern that we always fall into, and there's something that keeps repeating, or we keep meeting people that seem to be the same type of person, or we're in this kind of pattern and this role. And what we've done historically is kind of attributed that to a fault within me. It's
mhm,
because I believe I'm not good enough. Something
right.
along those lines, yeah. And we think that we have an emotion that goes with that. I'm not good enough. So what I need to do, traditionally what we've been doing, is either working on trying to be better, going into the story of that and making myself better and improving myself. So we've got the whole self-help sort of industry that supports that. Um, and that by fixing it, then we won't be in that pattern anymore. But we all know how difficult that can be and um, how unlikely it is that we're going to really change deep patterns in that sort of way. In the trauma-informed paradigm, what we'll do is have a pattern, and what we would do is attribute it to something that happened to us before. So
Mhm,
I keep running into difficult bosses at work because of the way that my dad treated me when I was a child.
mhm,
So we go back and we try and find that memory and the belief that was created at that time and process that so that we can change the pattern in the here and now. That's kind of like the trauma informed paradigm way of looking at things.
mhm,
So what the Liberty Code shows us is that instead of going across on a kind of a horizontal line, looking on your timeline to see where this started,
mhm,
what we need to do is go vertical, but sort of downwards vertical, and
mhm,
go into the other hidden layers of the ego mechanisms that are running underneath that pattern. Okay.
mhm,
So with the principle understanding being that this pattern is running because on an identity level, the ego wants it to run that way to keep us in the identity.
mm,
Okay, so
mhm,
let's say you have a difficult boss at work, or you always have difficult bosses at work. What the ego pattern is running there is the identity of the one who's never validated, the
mhm,
one that's never seen to be the one that's trying the hardest, or some sort of archetypal role like that.
mhm,
It will upload that. Um, and then what it'll do is, it'll keep us engaged in that storyline just to keep the identity running. So we're taking it personal. My boss doesn't like me. It's because I'm not good enough at my job. It's because he doesn't see my value, is the storyline. But
mhm,
actually what's happening is there's just a prediction loop running. So this is the prediction loop of nobody validates me because um, I'm not seen. And we just recognize it from that perspective rather than go into the whole story of it.
mm.
And when we see it, when we start to drop down into the deeper layers of the patterning and we just expose it, the loop can collapse and we come out of the storyline of it and the pattern will shift. Um, just naturally as a sort of a side effect of us changing the pattern loop. The
Mm.
mind is predictive, it's a meaning making machine. That's what our thoughts and our beliefs are doing. We're not reacting to the environment. We're just constantly predicting into the future with these predictions all of the time. Um,
So the
so for
body is
example,
reacting to the
and the
predictions
body is
rather than
reacting.
environment.
Absolutely. So when we're having emotions, what we've been mislabeling as emotion, what we're actually doing is having a sort of a simulated experience of that thought being true. The emotion seems to back it up as if it's real.
Yeah.
The emotion makes
Mhm.
the thought feel real in the body. It's like a simultaneous thing that happens. What we'd also do traditionally in therapy is we work with the emotion.
Mhm.
Let's go to the emotion. Let's label the emotion. Let's feel the emotion. Let's process the emotion. A lot of kind of traditional work in the healing field is around working with emotion.
Sure.
But actually, we see through the Liberty Code that we're not actually doing anything when we're feeling emotions. Feeling is not healing. Feeling is actually sort of affirming the simulation. Um, it's not really doing anything to work with the emotion. We just see it for what it truly is. It's just the backup to the thought. What we also see with the emotion is that it's actually hiding something else underneath, which is the relish or the desire to be in that role. That's actually running underneath the emotion.
Mhm.
Um, so so for me, and it's still becoming clear, it's still expanding and it's still evolving as a kind of a perspective, if you like, the Liberty Code. But that's been a huge game changer for me because, I spent a long time feeling to heal. um
But
and
okay, we can just stop here for a second.
yeah,
There is okay, there is an emotion, and if we are just, let's say, fear, because people sometimes go and sit in a fear, that doesn't do anything.
no,
No, it just makes you feeling worse,
yeah,
paralyzed or frozen.
yeah,
Because there's a resistance to that as well. Because why why do I want to feel fear in order for it to go away? Right?
mhm,
So there is a hidden resistance to that. But there is
yeah,
also being with fear, recognizing it for what it is,
mm,
seeing what's behind it, right?
yeah,
What's behind it?
mm,
What is there that needs that protection?
mm,
And then when this system recognizes that perhaps there is nothing there that needs that protection anymore, that protection goes away. So it's sitting to feel the fear for it to go away. It doesn't do anything. But we can work with emotions in a different ways also, and it works.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. I mean, they're signposts for sure, and they are alerting us from the Liberty Code perspective. What the emotion is doing is alerting us to where there is a prediction loop running.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it gives us the way in, if you like, not to treat it as a way into dealing with the emotion, but in access to what else is running. You're absolutely right. So it's helping us sort of become the witness to what the mind is doing in that moment, which is it's going to be running a loop. So with fear, I think it's pretty much always something that's going to happen in the future. It's got a very
Mm-hmm.
predictive nature to that. Um, and so what it's helping us to do is like, okay, so what's the loop that's running now? What is it anticipating is going to happen? What's the fear? And then we look at it from in terms of, okay, and what identity structure is at threat here? It's not that there is an actual danger in terms of
Mm-hmm.
physicality, likely, but what's actually under threat is my identity as the one that wants to be seen as perfect, or the one that always has to get it right, or the one that might fail in the interview, or whatever it is that it's running in terms of fear. It's anticipating something bad's going to happen to me. So you're right, we use it for that, we expose it, we see that it's just a loop that's running. We can also name the identity, the archetype that it's trying to
Mm-hmm.
protect. That's what's
Mm-hmm.
actually being
Mm-hmm.
protected. And then just declare that we don't want that anymore. It's a really, really simple process. Um, if we look at this and I think different traditions say this differently, but if we look at it from a place of awareness, or in IFS they'd say from self energy, or when the Course in Miracles they'd say look at it with Jesus, But as long as we're looking at it and we're in that kind of observer, witnessing, awareness state, just looking at what's actually going on in the depths of the ego mind and exposing it, um, then it'll collapse. You know,
Mm. Yeah.
it collapses on a deeper level, and not only does that prediction loop collapse, then that also the archetype that's connected to it, that's being preserved, will also collapse as well. Um, so that we stop running prediction loops that are scared of how we may be seen and those kinds of ideas.
Mm. Okay, let's talk some deep stuff. You know, this idea or identity of being a separate self. Like
Mm,
there's life out there, God out there, and here I am on my own, little me, small me, separate.
mm,
And as you say, that is being protected from being found out.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you also said that we kind of choose to experience that. So how to undo that one? Because this is what awakening is all about, just seeing through that self illusion,
Mm,
separate self. So in your
mm,
view, or this liberty code view, how to undo that one?
mm. Well, I think there's a top down and a bottom up, alternatives for
Mm-hmm.
for for seeing this. And I think I'm just thinking this at the top of my head, but in Liberty Code, it can be either or. So I guess okay, for example, I've noticed that it's possible for someone to see through separate self and see through the illusion
Mm-hmm.
and yet still have these patterns running.
Yeah.
There's still, it's still very much alive. The ecosystem is still running, even though on a kind of a fundamental level, we may have seen through that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So it's like we still have to recognize that the patterns and we still have to unidentify from them as
Right.
part of an ongoing sort of unfolding, if you like. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in that situation, then great. It just gives us an easier, quicker, kind of more direct way of not taking this personal anymore, going straight into the predictive nature of it and collapsing it there. Um, I think also for people who might be brand new that just want to feel better, for example, or just want to come out of suffering, that we can start to relate to the suffering from this perspective as well and collapse the pattern loops as they arise in real time, in day-to-day life as they arrive as they do. As a way of kind of it's a little bit, I suppose, like doing feta work. You might see through the self, and then we've got the other seven fetters, or I can't quite remember what the fetters model is now, but
Uh-huh.
we've got the other fetters to kind of work through. It's a little bit similar to that. Like the patterns are still going to keep appearing. The ego is going to want to try and take us back into this separate identity again. And this just gives us a way of being able to stay aware of that, and continue to sort of clear, if you like, um, those what I see as pattern loops now from the ego mind.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so and through that process, it's an unfolding. It's a gradual unfolding, I guess. And through that, I mean, I'm just trialing this with a new group at the moment now, and it's pointing to these questions. It's like, okay, well, if I'm not in the driving seat and I'm not the one making these predictions, then who am I? you know and
Uh-huh.
it causes us to like look at that as well. It takes us into that deeper self-inquiry process
Mm.
of asking and inquiring. Yeah, it's quite
Yeah, I love that because it sounds like, you don't need to go through the awakening to know self to be able to get the benefits of this process.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's quite multi-dimensional in that sense. I think
Mhm.
and the way that it works as well. I've actually tuned, should I say, a GPT bot, which is programmed to only view things from this perspective. It
Mhm.
doesn't search the internet. It just draws on the neuroscience, which is a
Mhm.
fascinating. I mean, I'm so fascinated by the neuroscience and the computer science at the moment, and the Course in Miracles and the hidden desire layers, and it's sort of in other things as well, infuses these together specifically. So it doesn't matter what your entry point
Mhm.
is to this inquiry. It will mirror that and support you in deepening whatever that is, wherever that is. you know um whether you are awakened or whether
I
you
love that.
or whether you have depression and you just want to know why you feel depressed. I mean, that could be your entry point into this deeper exploration, which happens when we're not looking at it from a self-help, trauma-informed, counseling-informed kind of tradition. We're looking at it from a very sort of non-dual neuroscientific perspective. And it's, it can hold that. It's very, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, what comes to say if people are listening and they're working with a therapist on traumas and stuff, don't stop. Keep doing. If that's right for you, it's right for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But there are
It's
other alternatives, apparently.
absolutely. And it's okay for me sitting here going, you don't really need to do trauma work. But I did that for a long time,
Right.
and I don't know whether I'd be sat here saying that if I hadn't. You can't
Yeah.
exclude that. And I think there's definitely, it definitely is an unfolding. And I think for maybe all of us, I don't know, but it is important that certain things do get validated, that we do have to honor the tragedies and the trauma of life as well. Um, there is also an invitation to continue unfolding from that so that we no longer identify with it. And I think, that's been a sort of a bit of a kind of a side effect from the trauma industry is that it can inadvertently become an identity. We can re-identify with aspects of that trauma story, um, either as, a survivor or somebody who had things happen to them that shouldn't have happened. And these kinds of ideas. But absolutely go and, do what we need to do to honor that and process or release or whatever that means, for people to do instinctively what you feel led to do. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's more about the practitioner than the method, really. Because,
Mm.
the method, the protocol, everyone can read the lines and say, but it's about the practitioner. And if there's genuine care and genuine love and genuine support for the person in front of
Yeah.
them, then
Yeah.
things happen
Yeah.
also, you know. But
Ab-
like we talked before, there are people who are going to these practitioners in any kinds of ways to prove to themselves that they are beyond fixing. And that's the
Absolutely.
identity. That's a very serious issue because, no matter who you talk to or what they're going to advise or show you, you are still
Mm.
beyond fixing. So I think in that kind of case, yeah, seeing that predictive loop could could really break the pattern and could really give a different view at what's going on because
Yeah.
that's unconscious. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. The ego is very good at co-opting everything and especially healing, healing and non-dualism and and everything else. But yeah, somebody could find themselves going for therapy and to get more validation as the broken one,
Yeah.
um, the one that can't be fixed. And and in my practice, I had a private practice for a long time, and and I think I've seen this also in a lot of kind of non-dual groups that I've sat in on as well over time, like people sort of hopping around from group to group, and
Mm-hmm.
you wonder whether the ego is co-opting there as the one that can't see it, and the one that can't awaken, and the one that can't be fixed. The ego wants us to stay in that identity. Um, and so, we will encounter clients perhaps that don't there's no change. They sort of seem very fixed in that patterning. Um, so yeah, this really allows us to drop down into those, hidden layers. They don't even recognize that's what they're doing. To them, it seems very real.
Right.
To story is you're the 10th therapist I've tried and no one's ever been able to help me, or you're the 10th, non-dual guide that I've had and no one's been able to help me see through, because they're in that pattern where on a deeper level the ego is desiring that identity role to continue playing out, and until we see that, it will do.
So what is that ego? Let's talk about that. What is this ego? Seems like there's somebody in there living and just pulling the lever,
Yeah,
what the handles in the wrong direction.
yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I different sort of approaches, see it differently, I guess.
Uh-huh.
But yeah,
Let's see.
it's you know, for me, it's really the sort of the totality of what we think we are, the thinking system underpinned by beliefs, underpinned by desires. That's kind of um seemingly operating through us is that which we identify with, the thoughts, the emotions, the storyline, the narrative, the what we think is the history, kind of like repeating itself. And neuroscience sees that it's kind of uploading in the now, in every moment, in this sort of predictive kind of way. And we don't know it's doing that. We think it's me.
Mm-hmm,
This
mm-hmm.
is who I am. And it's full of characteristics. It's a character that's full of all these characteristics. And we can just see those as kind of identity archetypes, that just upload in different, and we think that there's a totality in that. That is our ultimate identity. Um, and yeah. Um, I think, yeah, I don't know how else to put that, but something like that.
Okay.
And and we don't really know where
It's the voice in the head that keeps telling
the
the
voice.
stories.
Yeah. And it speaks in the first person, and it mimics your voice as if it's you. And it uses these words, I, and me and mine and yours. And so it sounds very, very convincing. We're absolutely hooked. We're really addicted. We're so addicted to it, because it gives us meaning and purpose and specialness. In the Course in Miracles, there's a big emphasis, um and it kind of makes sense that we came here to be special. I want to be God. I want to be the one that's creating. I want to be the one that's, in charge. And I guess the ego is the simulation of that. It's sort of like the VR of specialdom. While we play it out as a game, it can't actually happen. We can't actually be separate. We can't actually be special. No one's special. But we can play it. We can play
Mhm.
the game.
Yeah, it's like there's freedom to experience, to have this experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, which comes when we realize that's what it is. It's just the freedom of, the expression of this. And we don't have to take it seriously. It doesn't mean what the ego says it means. Um, we're not actually in the driving seat of it. We're not actually on our own. We're not actually separate. We're not actually abandoned, you know, which is what sort of creates the simulation of suffering, you know.
Mm.
Um,
Okay,
so
so from
yeah,
the perspective of presence, just being or openness,
yeah,
everything's okay. But here you
everything's
go, we have
yeah,
that entertainment center turned on. Say, oh,
yeah,
let's pretend that it's not okay. Let's just create some drama here.
yeah,
And I want this, and I'm not gonna get this. Everyone's gonna suffer.
yeah, absolutely. It loves the drama,
Mm.
We're addicted to it. We get relish. So what the ego's done, there has to be a buy-in from the ego's perspective to make us chase this, to want more of it, to go into the addiction of the drama patterns. And what it actually also simulates, in a sense, is the desire for that. There is an actual relish in being the one that's right.
Hmm.
We like the ego likes to. This is the payoff to be the one that, I told you so, and the one that is seen as being better than the next person. We like being smug, we like to be seen, we like to be validated, we like to be treated as special, we like to be praised. There's all these kind of hookings that keep us in the game. That's the currency of it, is this desire for it, and then the relish that we get. Which there's always a big price to pay for it, because of the way the ego works. But if we can just imagine, how good it is to feel righteous, for example. It's a very what's the word, like seductive.
Hmm.
It's a seductive thing to desire, you know. So we
And
have
I
to be
think
willing.
on this side, it's even more difficult to see it because for example, let's say this ego or I me gets created upon resisting something because the resistance comes in and there's a narrative going, I don't like this. I'm going to get rid of this. It's
Mhm.
me. It's being hurt by that. You know, that me here in the resistance angle is negative.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
in the angle that you are saying, it's more like pride, expanded, loving itself special. That is even
yeah,
more difficult to kind of let go of because there is all investment in that, more investment. The
yeah,
bad, yeah, go away, but the
yeah,
good, let's keep it.
absolutely. Yeah, it's the same coin, you know, it's the two sides of the same coin. Of course, we all want to not be suffering anymore, and we don't want to be the bad person anymore, and we're quite willing to, you know, see that and let that go. But are we willing to put our special identities down? Are we willing to be that nobody who nobody sees or praises? That there's no need for that validation anymore. There's no need for invites. There's no need for social media and being recognized and being somebody. I mean, that's really the difficulty. That's where the ego has got us, you know. The Course in Miracles talks about this an awful lot. Is that we don't really want to put the identity down. We're terrible. The ego is terrified of that. So there are these kind of, you know, breadcrumbs of um, benefits of being a separate identity, which come in the form of validation and specialness and these sorts of things. And, you know, yeah, those are difficult to trade in.
Like,
You
who
know,
am I
especially
if I'm not, enlightened?
exactly, exactly. It's that. Yeah, absolutely. Or even the enlightened one, or whatever it is. All these identities that it'll keep grasping onto, you know, at every step
Hmm.
of the way, you know. Um, but how would I be to be absolutely no one if I didn't own anything, if I didn't need anything, if nobody was honoring me or validating me? You know, to be that sense of not needing that. We can't comprehend what that could feel like or what that would mean, or the ego can't. Uh, but we chase it. We chase validation and specialdom and identity. You know, it expresses itself in many of the things that we do. Uh,
And I was just
and
thinking about entertainment on this planet, right?
yeah,
Movies, theater,
absolutely.
books, poetry, songs.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
we
We
want
love.
that. We
We
want
want.
that because it's juicy.
Yeah, it's
Nobody goes and
juicy.
sits through the movie that is about nothing.
Absolutely. We want something because we relate to it. My ego can relate to this. It resonates with me. I understand this storyline. You know, I identify with that character in the story. I like to choose a side, like I'm the good guy and he's the bad guy, and all these different
Hmm.
sort of character roles. And so, yeah, and whether it's a movie on a screen in a cinema that we're doing that with, or, you know, the screen of our lives, it's kind of the same thing. We're still in the entertainment um, realm.
Yeah, but it's cool. Entertainment is good, but if it's mistaken to be a reality,
Yeah,
if it's
yeah,
taken seriously
mm,
and it's so important, then suffer.
mm, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Whether it's your life story or it's, you know, the characters in your life or it's the characters on the screen. Yeah.
So entertainment is being mistaken for reality.
Absolutely. I guess, you know, in reality, there's not a lot going on.
Well, it's quite wonderful to be in reality. I would say the real juice is in reality, but
Absolutely.
unless we are willing and ready to give that one up, we
Yeah.
don't know. It seems boring. What is
Yeah.
that bliss?
Yeah.
What they're
Yeah.
talking about? How
Yeah.
boring is that? What are you gonna
Yeah.
do with this? Nothing.
Yeah. It's really interesting that, isn't it? This came up yesterday as well, actually. Like the ego's like, it is gonna be boring. I don't want to let go of these things. And you know, I've done exercises like this with people in the past, like what would it be like to be in let's say self-energy? And it's like, oh, we'd have nothing to do.
That's so funny because this is just like, don't go there. Don't even think
Yeah,
that, it's
yeah.
going to be awful, chaos.
Blah.
I love it
Yeah.
when it says, no, if there is no control, there would be chaos. Really?
I want to
You're in
get things
charge here?
done. Yeah, absolutely. It's so fixed with its own sort of sense of self-importance and how much it's needed. Yeah, it's great.
I have this question I ask sometimes. They say, it's a funny question. Did you create the universe? Like, really? Some people would think, uh, well, I say, I haven't. I'm just here. Everything's here. The colors, sounds. I have no idea how it works. Did you create this? Did you?
Ah,
It's
yeah, the
like,
ego would
oh,
like
yeah. The ego says, yeah, I did. Look,
I did.
it's not working right. I'm going to fix it. That's why I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna
yeah,
be in charge of how to make this work.
yeah,
Oh, good job.
absolutely. I know. Yeah. It's yeah, it's just the backdrop. And but it's a really big distraction, isn't it? Fixing the world and going into the story of that and fixing it.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of archetypal roles that sort of that it keeps entertained.
Yeah. And then I asked, and who put you into that position? You just say, I want to be there. Who made you in charge of the universe?
It's brilliant, isn't it?
Like, come out. I'll see
Yeah,
you.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, it's beautiful. It has its answers ready in its self-imposed, self-important role that it's here. Um, we see it play out a lot in sort of the drama triangle, for example, and the rescuers and the people pleasing and the here. It doesn't mind, which role we're in as long as we're in an identity role that's playing something out, you know. Um, and that's what the Liberty Code really helps us to expose. It's kind of like calling ourselves out in a way, um, by by questioning our motives, questioning what's really going on there. Are you, for example, okay to make that donation and not tell anybody about it as well? Are you really doing that from altruism? Or is there a little bit of a kick in there? Is there a little bit of a payoff for the ego that, we're able to share something from the whatever identity and
Mhm.
just start to deconstruct um the hooks into it, you know, just to sort of dampen the need for the addiction to it. Um,
Yeah. Also, while you mentioned hooks, um, like everything and everyone wants your attention, right? And there are ways to get your attention, like hook it on
yeah.
technology, or how to say the structure of that hook, the way it's constructed and all that, to get your attention and keep it. So in a way, we can say that attention is so precious that everyone wants it, and then this thing in the mind, it's like it wants all attention on itself, or it's off, and whatever
Yeah.
is going to confirm it, validate it, support it.
Mm,
Yeah,
mhm. Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so if we are no longer responding to these hooks, or if we get unhooked, there's so much peace.
Yeah. It's like we're just putting it down, it's yeah, we're just collapsing the if we collapse the apparent need for it in the first place on a very deep level, we really go to the source of that patterning, if you like, and collapse it right at the source, which is really the very deep meta layer of it, is this idea that I am separate, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and that I need to be doing something to keep fulfilling that role. Um, so um, so if we collapse it there at kind of at source, and the Liberty Code sort of process helps you to identify what those layers are and see them, um, then the hook's gone. We don't need it or want it. We're not desiring it anymore. And then yeah, there's just peace.
Ouch.
Yeah. Yeah, when we're not constantly feeding this need all the
Mm-hmm.
time to validate the idea that I'm separate
Mm-hmm.
through different identity roles, you know. Um,
So what I'm hearing here is there is a lot of deconstruction that has to happen, and there are less and less and less and less. And sometimes people in seekers that have their experience, they recognize what they are, but all these layers are still here, and they kind of get worried
yeah,
there is something wrong with me. But that is
yeah.
just another layer to
It's
be
just another
deconstructed.
loop. Yeah, that's just another loop back into the idea that there's a me and there's something wrong with me. It
Mm-hmm.
likes to be in the idea that we're broken and there's something wrong with us as well. So, the invitation is that if you and I think this is everybody, if you notice that there's a pattern that keeps looping, we even say that it
Uh-huh.
keeps looping, because it literally is looping. It's because we've not really gone underneath it. We've gone along the timeline of it, we've not dropped down underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, to heal it at its actual source. Um, and we can only appreciate what that is, I think, from a non-dual perspective, with this kind of understanding of what the ego is and how it operates.
Mm.
You know,
It's
yeah. So, and I don't
fascinating.
think I don't think it needs to be like a long, drawn out and I think this just it's a natural unfolding. Stuff happens in real time. I think life
Mm-hmm.
provides us with everything that we need, in order for this unfolding to, or whatever you want to call it, to happen. Um, the um the intention with the Liberty Code is to simplify it, to simplify exactly what it is that we need to look at and be exposing and collapsing.
Mm.
That's the
And
intention
in
of.
this case, it's the hidden desires that
Yes,
this
absolutely.
the payoff, the juice
Yeah,
that this
absolutely.
me gets from believing something.
Absolutely. And this is made quite clear in the Course in Miracles, that we need to go in at that sort of level. It's kind of, sprinkled throughout the whole book, this idea of these hidden desires that none of us really want to look at. We're too busy projecting and blaming the world. We don't really want to come in and see what's happening within our own systems in that
Mm-hmm.
way. Um, and I don't mean the IFS system, I mean the bigger system. Um, so the book is encouraging us to do that. And then this wonderful woman called Kay Villars, sort of channeled another extension of that and just distilled them into these 82 hidden desires that are at the base of the egoic structure system. And that when we start to view our patterns and our circumstances through the lenses of these desires, it really helps us to expose what's really going on in very illuminating ways. That you can't help but admit when you see them. Like,
Ouch.
yes, there was a little payoff going there, yes, but we have to be willing to admit it,
Mm-hmm.
uh, to be able to dissolve it, to collapse it. And that is where the ego keeps itself hidden. This is where the hidden layers are. Nobody wants to admit that they're secretly enjoying the praise and attention that they're getting from their Facebook post, for example. We'll deny that. We're going to deny, no, I'm just doing it because it's informative or whatever. Not admitting that we've checked how many times, how many likes it got. you know, this kind of like other hidden behavior pattern that's running underneath our surface level sort of behavior patterns um, is very, very useful to look at.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, so could you tell us how can people find you in case they want to work with you and explore this more? What's
Yeah,
going on?
sure. You can find me on Facebook, just Charmain Berry on Facebook. I do have an old website, charmainberry.co.uk, and or you could email
Ah,
info at charmainberry.co.uk, and yeah, get in touch any of those ways. If you're interested in exploring more about the Liberty Code. Um, there's no. I'm still trialing it at the moment, and
hmm
it's still being refined, and it's still being simplified. And so it's expanding and refining every day as it's evolving into something very succinct. So, but I'm very happy to talk to people about it at the moment, and
hmm
people would like to trial it or explore it, then there's an invitation to do that.
Yes, but it's only for the brave people.
Yes. For the ones that are really willing to go in and expose and look at this
Yeah,
kind of level. It's not for everybody. I mean, it absolutely isn't for everybody.
yeah, because it's dangerous, you know.
It can be destabilizing,
No,
but
I'm not saying it's dangerous for the structure because you can
oh,
actually
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
pop.
Yeah, it is a threat to the structure, yeah, for sure. But it could also be destabilizing because what it might say to preserve itself in that way is that
hmm
this process is dangerous, that it's not honoring trauma, or it's going to invalidate you too much, like it might be too destabilizing um for very protected systems.
hmm
So really just feel into your intuition, and whether this
Yeah.
feels like something that you're ready to explore. It's absolutely safe in every regard. Absolutely. But the
It,
ego might say otherwise.
yes, because that part is afraid of freedom.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
but the
Absolutely.
conscious mind is like, yes, please, finally. Where's the
Yeah.
where's the peace? I want peace.
Yeah.
Enough of this
Absolutely.
show, you know?
Yeah.
Now how to
And
unplug it.
unplug it in. The Course in Miracles says all you need is a willingness. That's it. Just
That's
be
it.
willing. You might not know where that's going to take you or what's going to happen down that path, but if there's willingness, as it would say in the book, I'm there. Jesus is all over it. Awareness is all over it, and you'll be guided from there on. Just be willing.
Wow. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much. And if you watch
Thank
this video till the end, you definitely have been guided here.
you. Beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's such a pleasure to talk to you and such fun as well. Oh, and thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Bye now.